You know me, I have no script.
Alrighty, so the recording has started, and yeah, we've got a bunch of lovely ladies here joining us for this Q&A on self-love and what it's all about, and any questions that you may have. And please, the reason Michelle and I are here is to answer your questions. Michelle is the self-love guru, and that is the core of what she does. It's a very important aspect of what I do as well. And, you know, it's one of the more important things that we can do for ourselves, is just to learn to love ourselves, because then our outlook on life is just so much better. And it's well, you all know about karma. What goes around comes around, and what you put out, you get back threefold. So, right. Anybody have any questions? What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to be muting you all. Let me see if I can actually do that. Okay, I'm going to mute you all, and then I'm going to unmute Michelle. There we go. Okay, so the rest of you are unmuted. If you want to ask a question, if you could just put your hand up and I'll unmute you. It's just so that we don't get the background noise, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, we're at home on Saturday, and we've got families coming in and out and being nosy. So, right. Anybody got any questions for us?
I have a question for everybody else, actually, if nobody wants to be super quick and ask a question. And my question to you is, what does self-love mean to you? If you want to raise your hand or type it in the chat box, what does it mean to you? What do you think of when you think of self-love? Yeah, crickets.
Yeah. So while you guys are thinking about it, let's talk about, you know, why is self-love so important? You know, everybody talks about it. You hear about it. Sometimes it just doesn't sit right with you. But why is it so important in everybody's life? Michelle, to me, let me sort of put in my 5 cents worth. To me, self-love is the cornerstone to anybody's journey, because particularly the journey that I tend to guide people on, I walk with people on their journey of coming home to themselves. And the first thing we need to do in order to do that is to get out to know ourselves, and we can only get to know ourselves if we love ourselves and accept ourselves. Because if there's a whole lot of stuff about ourselves that we don't like and we don't love, then we tend to ignore it and you know, live very superficially and skim along the surface of things. So if you really want to dive deep into who you are and what you are, if you want to return home to yourself, you need to learn to love yourself. And when you love yourself, you can then love others unconditionally. So, Michelle, I don't know if you have anything to say.
Yeah, I do, but I was watching the comments roll in, and I'm loving what I'm seeing. So Joanne says being kind with yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And being kind with yourself always. Sherry said it was an essential part of their healing journey. I couldn't agree more. That is absolutely where I learned the concept. And Jan says putting yourself first and being honest with yourself. And I love all of these, because that is where I come from. So my personal story, and this is why I don't ever use the oxygen mask analogy, is because I was such a hugely proud martyr that the first time I took my kids on a flight and the flight attendant said, put your oxygen mask on first, it was everything I could do not to laugh out loud. Because you've got to be crazy if you think I'm going to save myself before my children. I had no concept of how that can make sense to anyone. So that was the integral part. I didn't gain a concept of that until I started my own healing journey, much like Sherry was saying. And why I'm such a huge proponent of self-love now is because as I evolved on my healing journey and I loved and accepted myself more, I saw the change in every relationship I had and every interaction I had. Because the more I accepted myself, the more I accepted other people. And so rather than being judgmental and chastising other people, which I did unconsciously before, I can really love that everybody has their own path because I love my path. Does that make sense?
Yep. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I recommended to people in my groups that they, if they aren't able to join live, they actually put questions in the comments, and I'm just checking to see if anybody has done that, which I can't see right now. So, but yes.
So who wants to take a turn and ask a question or share your experience or your viewpoint or anything?
Okay, Jan's got her hand up. Let me unmute you. Hi, Jan.
Hello. So,
I'm so excited to see you.
me too. How are ya? My question is, how do we convince our children of this? We have teenagers out there doing stupid stuff, trying to be part of the group and trying to be accepted. How do we deliver this message to our children so they become the adults they truly are intended to be?
Michelle, you've got children. I don't have children, so I think Michelle is more qualified to answer this.
It's a huge one.
Big. It's real big.
It is. And I guess the best way I can answer that is just from my own parental experience. And I really do think that it needs to start at home and empowering your kids to be able to make their own decisions. And that comes from building their confidence and their self-esteem within guidelines so that they feel safe to go against the grain. And like, I look at my 23-year-old who hasn't always made the best choices. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. He's 23. But he did have the confidence to be able to say, I'm not doing it, and if you have an issue, then essentially you can go screw yourself. I always knew with him that if he got into trouble, it is because he made a calculated choice to do something that was going to get him into trouble. My younger son is now 18. He's a lot more introverted, so didn't have the same social stuff as my oldest. And it was also a lot more work to be able to build him up and to be able to, like, he's just now getting to the point where self-care is a thing that he does. And I praise him for it. I also lecture a lot, so that might have something to do with it. It's a hard one because they need to be in a place where they can receive it too, right? It's not strictly our control.
Right.
And that's that's unfortunately sometimes somebody else's path, that we can do the best we can, but at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do.
Right. So it's just a matter of letting them know it's there, support is there, and they still have to make their own decision.
Yeah, just making sure that they know that it's available.
And also, Jan, I mean, as I say, I don't have children, so I don't really know. But to me, leading by example. So if they see you taking care of yourself, if they see you, if you are a doormat to your children and you have no boundaries, that is not going to be a good message that you're passing on to them. So leading by example, making them realize that it is okay to say no in certain circumstances. Obviously not when they're told to do something and they say no, but just taking care of yourself and leading by example.
The other thing that I did, it just occurred to me that I did that may or may not benefit some kids, is I always allowed them to use me as a scapegoat. So if there was a party or something that they were invited to or something somebody wanted to do that they didn't feel comfortable saying no, and they also didn't feel comfortable with the activity, they were allowed to use me as an excuse. My mom won't let me go. My mom said I can't. And I'd have to ask them how much that helped, but it might be another option as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, does that help?
It does. It's to do with the child of a friend, and I've just been. I mean, I've made the offer to help him. I'm just trying to figure out key ways to continue to let him know that I'm here. No pressure. But yes, I like the fact of a scapegoat because there are some things that I can have him come to the studio and do and give him that excuse to get away from the peers and things like that. So I like that idea. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Kids they're a hard one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Because the thing is too, I've found with occasionally I'll see teenagers in my practice, and I'm absolutely astounded at the level of stress young people are under. It is phenomenal. And I think if we can somehow teach them to respect themselves and love themselves, hopefully that will help. Michelle, again, you have kids, so you know what kind of stress kids are under. I mean, I was astounded because when I was a kid at school, I mean, life just happened and you bumbled around and you got things done. You didn't, I don't know if it was because when I was a kid, I was living very superficially or unconsciously, but I just find it quite, it's actually quite saddening to see what kids are dealing with these days.
It is. And I think part of it was when we were 17, we didn't take life as seriously as they do today.
Yeah.
It seems like today they feel like they need to have all the answers right now.
Yes.
And it's getting it through to them to say, you don't need to have the answers. You need to be who you are first.
Yes. That's something else I expressed lots with my kids too, was you don't need to have your entire career path figured out in grade 9.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was able to use myself as an example because I have, with any employer, like I had one job when I worked with Louise that I had for 4 years. Other than that, 2 years was my max because I got bored. So that always was like, don't worry about 10 years from now. Like when you graduate, you're going to have to find a way to pay the bills. Fast food, Canadian Tire, like just go with it. And that's something I preached hard because there is all the career planning classes that you need to figure out all your post-secondary and what you're going to do with the rest of your life when you're 13.
Yeah.
How about you let them figure out puberty first?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think one of the things that we could do as adults and as parents is manage our own expectations of our children, because even if we don't necessarily say it, sometimes they believe that we expect them to exceed and to excel and to come first in their class, etc. So I think it would be important to make it very clear to them that it's great when they get, they come back with good results, but really they need to do the best that they can, because that's all they can do.
Hey, Sherry, or Jan, I just had an idea that is totally like not included here, but my 18-year-old is upstairs. Would it help to grab him and ask him?
Sure.
All right.
If that's okay with if that's okay with everybody else.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going off the rails. It's not super uncommon. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Alrighty. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for Michelle to come back, I'll just welcome Sue. Sue, I've got everybody muted, so because there's a lot of background noise going on. And if you want to ask any questions, if you could raise your hand somehow. You don't have your video on, so or otherwise put a question in the chat box. That would be great. All right, yeah, Sherry. Alrighty. Does anybody else have any questions, please? Oh, you're welcome, Sue. I don't know. I'm going to unmute you if I can find you. Hi, Sue. Can you hear us? Can you try talking? Sue, did you want to say anything? Nope. Okay, I'll mute you again because Michelle's back. Alrighty.
Yeah, I'm going to give the camera over to my 18-year-old who's not prepared for this.
Not one bit.
The question is, Jan, would you mind repeating the question for Caleb? This is my son, Caleb, everybody.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, Jan, you.
Okay. Hi, Caleb. So the question was, how do you approach someone your age to let them know that they need to put themselves first and start looking at self-care and not continue to follow the crowd, not let peers convince them, or, you know, whether they're convinced or not, them just going along. Basically, how do we get a 17-year-old to understand that he does need to put himself first and not just do what everybody else is doing? Does that make sense?
Just hang on. Okay, Caleb, you're unmuted.
It does make sense. It is a very hard question to answer given all the social media and everything that we're pushed with nowadays. One of the best ways to approach it is to see that not every relationship you make in high school or you make in your earlier life is going to continue. So as much as those people matter to you, it's also about seeing that the longevity of it, and that you have to see that you're going to matter for yourself for your entire life, where some people aren't going to matter for your whole life.
How do you get somebody to understand they need to matter to themselves?
I think it's for me to understand and to matter to themselves. That's a hard question.
You didn't know it was going to be a
How
test.
did you learn that you needed to matter to yourself?
That's also a hard question. How did I learn that I need to matter to myself? I understood that you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. And that's a really hard point to convey to somebody. It's something that, unfortunately, a lot of us have to learn on our own, and it hurts. And it's not fun, but that's life. I think the easiest way to do it would be talking with family and having other people give their experiences with relationships and how they've dealt with it, there's something to be said for being able to talk with family and have them understand their points, and that not everybody lasts forever in your life. And as fortunate as that can be for somebody, that's life, and we just gotta learn to move on from that.
Caleb, how did your mom support you? Because that's the question, is how can the question is from a mother or an adult who's wanting to try and support somebody who's 17 or 18 years old. What would you like to
charge my phone?
My mom really just supported me with unconditional love and understanding. And
yeah.
There's nothing more valuable than that.
Yep. Yep.
Mom's gonna cry. I love you, Mom.
I love you too.
Well, thank you.
It is really just about understanding and being able to be there for them when those situations hit. And you can't always be the one in charge. You can't always try to make them see something. Sometimes you just have to learn it the hard way. And trust me, I learned it the hard way and it sucked. But it's for the better.
Alrighty. Jan, you'll need to unmute yourself if you want to ask any other questions. Can you do that? Or do I need to unmute you? Okay.
Okay.
Jan. Yeah.
No, thank you. No, Caleb, that was great. That gave me an actual really great approach in the fact that I can have a conversation and say, who in your life today is going to be in your life tomorrow? Who do you have in your life today that you want in your life tomorrow? And how do you make that happen without taking care of yourself? So that's great. Thank you so much, Caleb. That's a great way for me to go.
No problem at all. I'm glad I could help.
Thanks, Caleb.
You're inspirational too.
Okay. Bye. I love you, Mom.
I love you too.
Hey, nice jammies, guy.
He was upstairs playing video games.
Alrighty. So Jan, are you good to go? Are you complete?
I am complete. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Amber, I will unmute you if I can find you. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, Amber, you got any questions? You got a question?
If you were never brought up with a whole lot of love and care, and I'm starting over. I want to be different, and I don't know how to show myself love so that I can fully give it to others, like my kids and those around me. So how do I start to heal myself, I guess?
Okay. Michelle, I'm going to unmute you again, but this thing is so slow. Whoops. There we go. I have I've actually got a daily practice that I want to share with you. There are 3 things to do daily, and there are a couple of things that you can add to that every day, just to start off slowly. And they may seem to be totally unconnected with what we're talking about right now, but if you practice. And the main thing is being mindful and being present and just being still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you, and so that you can see. Let's see how this works. There we go. Can you all see that? Can you, Amber, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're on your phone, I imagine it's a little bit difficult. So the things to do daily is with your food, what you do is instead of just sort of rushing into the kitchen, grabbing something and rushing off and eating it, do eating mindfully. So again, you know, instead of for dinner, you sitting at your desk, your kids sitting in front of the TV, other kids sitting in their room, get together as a family and really tune into what you're doing and eating. So when sitting at the table, not doing their messaging on their phones, etc. Just tuning into what you're doing, being present. Mindfulness, so with meditation, journaling, whatever helps you to be mindful, which means being in the present and being aware of what's going on. Meditation isn't for everybody, but just doing anything mindfully, going for a walk, for example, go for a walk in nature if that's possible for you. And that allows you to be quiet. It allows you to sort of start tuning into your higher self, connecting with your higher self, and moving, because when we move, energy moves as well. So it's very important for us to move. Whether you have an exercise regime, whether you go walking, whether you practice Qigong or Tai Chi, whatever works for you. So try and do those 3 things daily. And then the sort of the 8 practices that I've got underneath there, just select 3 of those every day to do. So, for example, to be seen, speak your heart. That is, to me, that is a key piece of self-love, is being able to speak up for yourself. And again, having good boundaries, being able to say no. And making yourself seen. So for a lot of us tend to be invisible because we talk too quietly, or we're timid. We're not comfortable with sort of being the center of attention. So there's that option. Choose supportive thoughts. Again, you know, just try positive thinking. If you catch yourself thinking, you know, with really bad self-talk, saying, oh God, I was such an idiot to do that. Catch yourself doing that and immediately then say something nice about yourself. Like, you know, wow, I'm feeling really good today. Or, you know, I really did a good job there. Savor special moments. Yeah, instead of skimming over them. And we are all so busy these days, and we also frantic and rushing around, and also we tend to keep ourselves busy because we don't want to face certain things. But when something special happens, just stop and really take that moment into you, you know, breathe that moment into your being. Expressing gratitude and thanks. Again, you know, I say to people, start keeping a gratitude journal. If journaling is not your thing, well, then that wouldn't work for you. But, you know, just write down everything you're grateful for every day. So that when you do have days where you're really battling to find something to be grateful for, you pick up your gratitude journal and you read it, and you see what is there, and that, yes, you did have things to be grateful for. Having goals, having something to work towards, because if we don't have something to hope for, and I'm not saying just, you know, transport yourself out of the present and go and live in the future, and because then you'll start worrying about, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? But, you know, like a goal could be to stop smoking. Okay, let's see if I can go without cigarettes just for today. You know, that kind of thing. Work on goals, and again, small goals. Be very kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself while you're doing that. Empathy for yourself and others. Again, watch your self-talk. Watch your thoughts. Watch what you say to others as well. Just being mindful. You can see all these practices are being just learning to become very mindful. Showing kindness and compassion for all. Again, that is particularly for yourself. Showing kindness for yourself, showing compassion for yourself. And new experiences, you know, just having new experiences. So, for example, if you haven't read a book for years, sit down and pick up a novel, even if it's a trashy novel, and sit and read a novel. So those are things that you can do, and by becoming mindful, becoming still, learning to be with yourself, be kind with yourself, you will then learn to really start appreciating who you are, appreciating your value, which is key to loving yourself. Does that help? I mean, that was a long-winded. You probably weren't expecting that. Michelle, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I do. Like, if I go back to that time where I had no concept of myself and where I personally started my journey, I did a lot of deep work. So exploring those stories that you tell yourself, that negative little voice that says, I'm not worthy. And where does that come from? For me, it came from my childhood. It came from experiences held there. And it ultimately came from somebody else's response. So if you dig deep enough to find where it comes from, then you can decide whether or not it's something that you're willing to accept as true. Another exercise that I did in the beginning was really trying to look back and remember what I liked. And that was part of my spiritual journey as well, was looking back on my childhood and remembering that I'd always known things I didn't have a way to explain. So if you watch the interview that Louise and I did previously, I explained that for me, self-love and spiritual connection are intertwined. And we all have a spiritual connection. We're all born with it. Something happens somewhere in our life that tells us it's not safe. So we turn down the volume. And when you can recognize and reconnect, like Louise says, reconnecting with your soul, reconnecting with your gifts, and you turn up the volume, that's where, for me, it became readily apparent that I am always unconditionally loved and supported by myself and by a force greater than myself. Gratitude, I'm gonna go with Louise, that's a huge one. If you're really stuck in a hole and gratitude is difficult, then I love to go to the focus. So what sound are you grateful for today? What picture are you grateful for today? And focus on specific things. Doesn't matter how small they are. You can be grateful that you can turn on your tap and drink the water. But gratitude will start that snowball as well. That's a big toolbox, but I'm going to stop there because I don't want to be overwhelming either. Does that help at all, Amber? It was an awesome, awesome question. Thank you so much for asking it.
Yeah. Yep.
It does. Thank you.
You're beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. So are you complete, Amber?
I am. I have to start working on myself, and I tried. I've been trying to meditate, but I feel like I don't know how. My mind goes places, and so yeah.
But that's okay.
Work to do.
And also just watching how you say things. You're trying to just that sort of sounds as if you. Oh, I'm really trying. Because if you try things too hard, you're doing the opposite. It's like if you sit down, you say, okay, I'm going to meditate, and all these thoughts come into your head. Learn to be very gentle with yourself, and just be okay with the way things are. And that is a very big thing to do. But learning to do that will be a good start. And again, I'm not saying just totally capitulate and oh, well, you know, I don't care about stuff, but just, well, it's okay for me to be like this because this is just the way it is at the moment. And it's you know, what you're working with at the moment.
And
That things change. Yeah.
Yeah.
another, like, super quick, Amber, one of my favorite ones, no time restraint, is just to put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths in and out. Just focusing on that heart center. Not only do you get to connect with your heart, but you just meditated and did it successfully.
No.
All that it takes. And then you can build from there. But
Great.
it can be as easy as just 3 breaths.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for your question, Amber. Okay. Alrighty. We're getting some good questions here.
I can't see the comments, so I'm relying on you.
Okay, yeah. Sherry asks, how do you balance self-love with that innate human need to belong? Sherry, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Alrighty. So you got the floor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially, you know, when Michelle's son was talking, you know, teenagers are so connected to that needing to belong, that peer pressure.
Yep.
And I was just curious as to how you help them get past that. I mean, it's hard enough as an adult when you feel like you need to belong to something, whether it's a church group or some kind of community. And sometimes in order to do that, the cost is some of that self-love. You do something that maybe isn't quite as loving in order to fit in.
Do you want me to get them back?
I don't know if you have some insight into it.
Yeah, I guess I just had to go back to what he said, and sometimes you just need to be able to make bad decisions and be loved anyway. I encourage my kids to find people that they belong with rather than giving up who they are to belong with people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, like, with my oldest, he's 23 now, but he's very extroverted and has a very large group of friends. But because I am who I am too, they grew up in my house. So I know them all intimately from elementary school. And when somebody new came in, I would also give feedback on what I saw or how I thought it fit. I didn't ever make the decision for him. And it was always posed as something to consider. Because I find with teenagers lots, if they think it's their idea, it's really good.
Yeah, really.
So rather than a dictatorship, and sometimes that had to happen, but for the most part, it was presented as food for thought. The same as when they had consequences they were super mad about. It's my only question was, do you understand where I'm coming from? And as long as the answer was yes, then you can be as mad or like you can have all the emotions under the sun, but you get it. Right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I still need to use that with my 30-year-old. There are times when it's like the communication hits a snag, and we both go our own way for a while.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing too, is that open and honest communication too. Like, I'll never forget, my oldest, when he was 17, was in a horrific car accident, completely his fault, rode off my SUV, and he was grounded. And on the second day, he got really mad at me and flipped out that grounding him wasn't going to teach him anything. It wasn't going to change anything. I'm the one that says life has no rewind. And as soon as I looked at him and said, you misunderstand, you are not grounded as a punishment. You are grounded because you scared the shit out of me. And the only way for me to know that you are safe right now is for you to not leave the house. And his entire demeanor changed, and it was now okay. But so I think lots of times they don't understand the emotion or the reasoning behind what we're doing as well. So sometimes just explaining that has a little bit more power too.
Can I chip in as a non-parent? My take on it is that as a parent, one of your jobs is to instill your own values and morals into your children, and then trust that they will take those morals and values into account when they make decisions or when they make choices. And it'll help them to realize that it was a good choice or a bad choice. But the thing is, the only way you learn is by making mistakes. Unfortunately, and you can see through history, human beings do not learn from other people's mistakes. They've got to learn themselves. Yeah. You know, don't put your hand on the stove, it's hot. Okay, so I put my hand on the stove and I get burnt. And then I will know forever that is hot. So, you know, as I say, this is a very airy-fairy viewpoint because I'm not a parent and I know it's a whole lot more complicated than that. But again, you know, leading by example, that's all you can do. So that when they do, and we all, again, as human beings, we pack animals. So yes, we want to join groups, and you know, that's where we feel safe. And it's actually quite, you've got to smile when you look at some of the groups that people join, that, you know, have a particular look about them, and they say that they are all individuals and that's why they've joined the group, but they all look the same and they all behave the same. You know, it's quite entertaining. So yeah, I don't know if that helps you, Sherry.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know, it's an ongoing challenge, really. Especially since, you know, as Michelle's been saying, I'm an introvert, and that need to belong isn't as strong in me, but it is still there.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter is the same way. And right nowadays, especially being a military wife, she is finding that need to belong is stronger because she's alone so much.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, from an adult perspective, like, I don't know that it's a perspective that my children consciously understood, but that like attracts like.
Yeah.
So the more your confidence grows and the more that you find your voice, the more you find people that have things in common with you.
Yeah.
That are the same. So you're not sacrificing yourself to be able to belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know when I first started talking about my spirituality, like when I first cracked the door on what I call the spiritual closet, it was funny that the closest people in my life all had some kind of experience with energy work and that kind of thing that we had never talked about.
Yeah.
Until I brought it up. And then it was somebody's grandma or somebody's aunt, or it was, yeah, really funny how that commonality was there. It was just never discussed before.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny. I find that very true, that more and more, especially as I've been more open about it, is that the people, more and more of the people in my life that I'm attracting are empaths. And I'm attracting out or discovering that more and more of the people that have already been in my life have lost someone to suicide. And it's just, you know, it doesn't have to be spoken to start occurring. It's like the universe kind of brings you together before the awareness hits, and when the awareness hits, it's like, wow, look at that. You just weren't in the place.
And then you have automatic belonging, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost Louise for a minute.
Sorry, lady. I had to go and put on the fire behind me. It's getting a little chilly in here. Right. Thanks, Sherry. Have we answered your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Are you good to go? Thank you. Alrighty. So Joanne has asked, are tarot cards a good way to get in tune with thoughts you may not even be aware of? Jan, I'm going to unmute you, or try. Things happen so slowly. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. I don't know why it's not. Oh, there we go, Joanne. I've got you unmuted. Joanne, I really like cards. I love tarot cards. I actually have a card fetish, and I know that Michelle does as well. Especially oracle cards, and I love tarot cards as well. I have so many decks of tarot cards, it's ridiculous. Cards are wonderful because they really help us to become conscious, and that's a question that you've asked, is most of us tend to live very unconsciously. You know, we tend to live on the surface of things, and we don't have a conscious awareness of what is going on, and it's a very good way to tune into your higher self. So do you have any questions about that?
Not really. I just I've only just discovered them, and they're amazing.
Yes.
And it is a good way, you know, when you say dig deeper to find yourself, really, because it all started with someone saying to me, we need to find the root cause of what's causing this. And I thought, how do you find the root cause? I have no idea. I was waiting for them to tell me, and I realised that it's me having to find the root cause. So that set me off on a journey, and a year later, I've come to find tarot cards, and wow.
That's great. That's exciting.
It is exciting.
One of the more frustrating things about being about trying to return home to ourselves is that it would be so nice if we could say, tune into our spirit guides, or tune into our higher selves, or tune into our guardian angels, and have them tell us. But they don't work that way. And it's so frustrating that they don't work that way. You know, when we do get guidance, it tends to be encrypted. It tends to be by signs, and that's why it's so important to learn to become mindful and centered and grounded and still, and learn to connect in with ourselves and really sit with things. And cards are a great way to help us to do that. Michelle, do you want to chip in here? Because, I know you love cards.
I do love cards. It's one of the reasons that I had to open a business, was to be able to write off cards and crystals. But oracle cards are my favorite, and they're really no different than tarot, except for they don't have suits is the only thing. I love cards because they're insanely accurate, and they show us things that we need clarification on, or help us with where to go, what to be aware of. I do card readings lots that are what to anticipate, what to be aware of, what to remember, all of those things. And I actually do a card reading for my Facebook group every Monday. They're awesome. I don't even know what to say. And when you're looking at discovering the root of your stories and that kind of thing, that's where having a coach or mentor is really helpful, because they're able to take the higher viewpoint. I call it the helicopter tour, so that you don't get stuck in the tar of emotion, because it's not the details of the experience that matter. It's the stories that you tell yourself about the details. But it's really easy, like when I started going back and exploring stories that originated in my abusive childhood, it was easy to get stuck in the details when that's not actually what matters to change the story. Hopefully that makes sense and isn't too cryptic.
The thing is too that because we are almost afraid of really finding out, the depths of who we are. When we read cards for ourselves, we very often will look at things very superficially. We won't really go into what they are offering us and what they're telling us. So again, sometimes it's a really good idea to go and see somebody else. Michelle and I, because we both live in the same town, we exchange with each other, because it's so important to go and see somebody else. I have a whole bunch of tools, but to have somebody else work on me puts me into a position where I can really relax and connect with what comes up. And if somebody else is looking at your cards, they're looking at it very objectively. When we look at our own cards, we tend to bring our whole life experience to them. And we're not necessarily looking outside of that experience to see if there are any messages that are coming through. So, Joanne, I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yeah, it has. Actually, if you need a mentor, is it better to do face-to-face in person, or can you do it over this media?
You can certainly do it over you can do it long distance for sure. Especially, for example, like we now have tools like Zoom or Skype, where you are actually having a face-to-face conversation with somebody. Both Michelle and I do a lot of distance work with people. When it comes to energy work, it's because energy is just, that's why we've got to be so careful of our thoughts as well, because our thoughts become energy and they go out into the universe. So in answer to your question, absolutely, it's having, for example, I have 3 mentors right now for 3 different areas of my life that I'm working on. And the one is in Australia, the one is in France, and the other is in the US. So, and I'm in Canada. So very definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I would second that. 95% of my clients are international, where we use this media. We use Zoom and distance energy healing. Some of my previous clients are on this call, which makes me really excited. And like Louise, all of my personal mentors and coaches are also living in a different country than I am.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I would add that the biggest thing when you're choosing a coach or mentor is to find somebody that you feel connected and comfortable with, because doing the deep work requires a huge amount of trust and a huge amount of vulnerability, and you need to feel safe enough to be able to explore that with them in order to get the greatest benefit. So don't hesitate to interview people if that's what you're looking for, or ask them a lot of questions, because that connection is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm really only just setting out on this journey. I feel quite fragile, so I don't really want to put myself into... I've come across someone who offers a 12-week journey, which she's put a guide thing on for sort of 12 months. So I asked her what the difference was between the journey and the guide, and she said it's the intensity, with the journey being quite intense. So my immediate reaction was, I don't think I can handle that intensity straight away.
Right.
And so actually just getting a guide line of trusting myself initially and trusting my intuition,
Yeah.
which is what I'm only just starting to learn,
Yes.
may be the best way to go. But I'm not really sure I can afford it at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that you need to sit with and write down exactly what you're looking for, what your goals are, what you would like to achieve. If you commit to any program, just what are you looking for? And also, again, making the decision, what you're doing is you are looking at whether you are prepared at this point already to make an investment in yourself. And that is something that you need to explore, because it's going on a journey to, for example, to really reconnect with who you are. It's not easy. And if you go back over your life, a lot of stuff has happened in your life and a lot of things need to be cleared. So going on a journey, it's a spiritual journey is certainly not easy. It's not all sitting under a tree with your legs crossed and communing with the universe. It involves work on your part. And as I say, stuff will be coming up. So sit with that. Just again, if you're using cards, maybe that's one of the questions that you can ask, and I'm sure you have already done so, is, is this for me at the moment? Am I ready for this? And be still and try and connect in with your inner self, and you'll get the answer. You will know. Somehow you will know.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Are you complete, Joanne?
I am. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
Yes.
Choosing to invest in yourself is incredibly terrifying when you're not used to doing things for yourself, or when you're not entirely confident in yourself. Louise can attest to the first time I spent 5 figures on a coaching program was through the all-out ugly cry. I was so scared and so trepidatious and so excited. And at the end of the day, I was scared because I didn't know if I could actually show up and do the work. the investment in yourself is scary and exciting because it's the only investment that you ever make that you can control the return on, but that you're also responsible for the return on. And so it is a huge step. It can be super scary. So like Louise said, I am a huge proponent of just really feeling into that and feeling into the person that you're looking at working with, making sure it's a match before you take the plunge.
Yeah, it's something that you really need to be comfortable with. And, you know, if you're like me, when I'm faced with decisions like that, I flip into my left brain and I start trying to get the logic of it and look at, okay, what is going to be the return on my investment? And that doesn't help, because then you start going into self-doubt and you start going into fear, and it doesn't help. You need to really tune into your gut. Alrighty.
And while we're talking about cards, I just noticed that Jan had a comment come up. How do you select cards when there isn't a place where you can hold them and feel them? And living in the Great White North, that'd be us. So my trick for that is A, buying cards when I'm out traveling where I can hold them or they fall off the shelf at me. And B, if I'm online, I just am drawn to the picture of the deck or the wording in the preview that just calls to me, and I hit the add to cart button.
Alrighty. Okay, Joanne, are you good to go?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. We have a question from Sue. She says she is experiencing not feeling relevant, or she has experienced in the last year of not feeling relevant, no longer with paying work, aging, not feeling needed by family, pleased that they are self-sufficient. And she says her family gives messages that she needs to be, don't quite understand. Sue, I'm going to unmute you. Can you hear us? Sue, we can't hear you. Can you please just check your settings, because you may have set yourself up for some other kind of audio. Michelle, I don't know if you want to start talking about, with regard to self-love. I mean, one of the big things that, especially as women, as we get older, just not feeling relevant and not feeling, because we lost, and that's why we don't feel relevant. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
I would go back to, what do you like to do, or what do you want to do? Like, is there something that interests you? The personal experience I have to draw on from that one is, like, if I look at my mom or my grandma, that my mom struggled with that a lot when she wasn't working anymore. And what do? And now my mom does card readings too. Or she has training in energy healing as well. So she takes the occasional client in her home. That helps her to feel good and like she has a purpose. The other one that she does is she belongs to a Facebook group in her community and really monitors what's going on and what people need help with. So like, they had a flood last year and she ran around the neighborhood helping people clean up. She volunteered at like a care facility. She has a really cute little pug that's very well trained. So she took her in to spend time with the older folks that they could sign up for a visit, and her and Samaya would go and visit with them. My grandma does a lot of 12-step work. So she is a sponsor for a couple 12-step groups. So she meets with people there. does bridge club. It is because you're always relevant. You're perfect, and there's a reason that you're here. What do you want to do with that time rather than reacting to what people need? If you get to make the choice, what would you like to do?
Yeah, what do you want to do when you grow up? Sue, we're not hearing you, so if you could type in the chat box, that would probably work. If you have any other questions. Okay, Sue says that she volunteers at high school. Don't understand why I'm not okay just being.
That's such a hard one to get used to. I'm not even gonna lie. And that's the first thought that comes to my mind was like, that's hard. And it's about practice. For a while, my youngest son lived with his dad, and my oldest had moved out. And the quiet, man, I hated the quiet. It took me like 6 months to get used to the quiet. The question that comes to mind is, what do you think being is? Like, what does being look like to you? Because it's all about balance. We are human beings, but part of the human life is having to do as well. So you can't, yeah, it's about balance.
Yeah. Sue, just, I don't know at what point you stopped working, but, if you've been in a situation where you've been working all your life, I retired from my, I used to be an accountant, and I retired 18 months ago. And I had great plans that I was going to go and run my practice full time, and I was going to be so busy. And I was shocked to find that I didn't want to do anything for at least 6 months. I did not want to do anything. I watched junk TV. I didn't even feel like reading books. I just vegged out. And then I said to myself, well, wait a moment. I've been working 24/7 for more than 40 years. I'm due for a break. And I allowed myself to then just not do anything, and again, just being. And that's, and as Michelle says, it's very hard because we have instilled in us this thing that we've got to be doing something. My sister actually sent me a message and said, so how's retirement working for you? My sister's older than I am. And I said to her, well, I'm finding it a little bit difficult because I'm not, I've been vegging out for months. I haven't done anything. I've been so lazy and slothful. And she said to me, well, don't worry, the family genes will kick in pretty soon and you'll get busy again. And I said to her, well, the family genes are there, so I'm sitting here doing nothing with a guilty conscience instead of just enjoying it. So, it's one of those cycles that we go through in our life. And, we can either fight it or we can go with the flow and just allow ourselves, give yourself permission to just be who you are and to do nothing if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, adjustments they take time.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is giving yourself permission to be where you are right now and to do what you are doing right now. And again, be very careful not to fall into the trap of just becoming a couch potato, because that can happen so easily as well. It's like the grieving process. You got to go through all the stages of the grieving process, because when you have huge changes in your life, and I know I'm latching onto this retirement thing because I can't talk to you. So hopefully this is answering your question. Just don't sort of withdraw from humanity, because one way to feel relevant is actually to go out there and to put yourself out there beyond your comfort zone, and to do things. How about making a decision to do something you've never done before? Like, if you've never painted a picture, maybe go to some painting classes or something like that. But again, it's all a case of giving yourself permission to do what you need to do, what is good for you right at this particular time. I don't know if we've answered your question, Sue. If you could just let us know, that would be great.
I think we had huge yeses pop up in the comment thing.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions at all?
I'm going to get really close so I can see who's here.
I'm just going to go and look at the Facebook stuff and see if there are any questions there. Okay, Sue, thanks for letting us know. Sue says we've answered her question, which is great.
Awesome.
Okay.
And I think that's like the other thing that I want to point out. Like, if you're just starting your self-love journey, this comment might not make any sense. But at the end of the day, true self-love is really about loving yourself, even when you don't feel like you're loving yourself. Because we are in ebb and flow, and it's never going to be perfect. And it is about being able to love and accept yourself during the down times as much as the up times.
It's like with everything in life. I mean, you know that with people in your family, people that you've worked with, and you hit stages where you are butting heads, where you just don't get on with them, or where they're just really pressing your buttons. And remember, you're doing that with yourself as well. Everything that happens externally happens internally as well. And you may be conscious of it, or you may not be conscious of it, but always be kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself. And watch the self-talk. As I said earlier, if you catch yourself really giving yourself a hard time, stop immediately and immediately think of something. Okay. Oh, Joanne's asked an interesting question. Very cool question. How did I get into the work that I do? Oh, have you got a couple of hours, Joanne? Okay, I'm trying to unmute you. Anyway, it was quite interesting because, as I say, I've been an accountant all my life, and yet I've subsequently realized, because I've always lived very unconsciously, and I've always been very well guided, but I've been conscious enough to actually follow that guidance. Conscious enough or lazy enough, who knows? Maybe I took the easy way out. I don't know. But what was interesting was that we used to live in Alberta. We used to live in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. And my husband and I and our dogs would go camping often, because it is so beautiful there in the Rockies. He's a fly fisherman, so he actually makes his own bamboo fly rods, and so he would go and look for the little streams, and I'd go hiking with him in the mountains. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And we were hiking in the mountains one day, and I turned to take a breath, and I was looking down a valley, And I suddenly had this thought that I would love to just have a retreat where people can come and reconnect with themselves, and just find out who they are again, get out of the busyness of life. So then my left brain kicked in, and I thought, well, how do I do this? So I went to the library. I took out every single bizarre and esoteric book I could find. I read some very interesting things, read some very weird things. And it actually was quite interesting, because I remember my husband came to the library with me one evening, and I had too many books for my card. So I asked him to put a couple of the books on his card. And he said to the librarian, those are her books, they're not my books. So I was totally sort of, that's not my wife, I don't know this person kind of thing. But I was very unfocused at that point. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Anyway, I was keeping my eyes open, and one of the local colleges was going to be running, I think it was an 8-week course on what they called energy medicine. So I thought, okay, I'll go to that, sounds cool. And so I went to it, and it wasn't really a course. It was more like a facilitation of a chat group. And it was interesting, but what it helped me do is become more focused, because, you know, I'd be looking at tarot, astrology, just anything like that. But energy healing was something that was very foreign to me. It was very new to me. So the great thing that I got out of that course was a very good reading list. So my reading became more focused. And then I decided I'd always wanted to do reflexology, for example. So I registered for a reflexology course at the college. And the first semester was traditional Chinese medicine, because that's what reflexology is all about. It's not working with meridians, it's working with zones in your feet. And I just loved Chinese medicine, absolutely loved it. It totally resonated with me. So I changed my mind and decided to do acupressure. So I did that. And I thought I'd do reflexology the following year. The following year, they offered aromatherapy. So I thought, well, let me do that, because they don't often run aromatherapy classes. So I did aromatherapy. And then, that's about the time all hell broke loose, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went through the treatment and the surgery and all the other stuff. And in the meantime, I was introduced to angels. I attended a therapy workshop by a very charismatic guy, and I thought to myself, well, I actually contacted him because I thought to myself, I want to get myself, he was a herbalist as well as an aromatherapist, and I wanted to get myself as healthy as possible energetically, apart from anything else, before I started on my horrible journey of the whole cancer thing. And when I spoke to him, he actually said to me, you know, I think you need to talk to my wife. So I thought, okay, that's fine. Feeling totally rejected, and, you know, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me. Anyway, I contacted his wife, made the appointment. And when I made the appointment, she said to me, do you want a chakra clearing, or do you want an angel reading? So I thought, I don't know. I said, well, let's try an angel reading. Don't know what that's about. Anyway, she introduced me to angels, which was great, because that's then I worked with angels throughout my whole cancer journey, and got into them in more detail after that. And when I was towards the end of my treatment, the same college that I'd studied at was offering Healing Touch. And Healing Touch is now international. It's a healing modality that was developed by a nurse for nurses, but nurse by the name of Janet Menken in the States. And Healing Touch is my foundation. That is my go-to. That is my base. Everything else sort of is on top of that. So yeah, and again, becoming more and more focused. And so I certified in Healing Touch, reflexology, aromatherapy. And it was just basically following guidance, Joanne. That's how I got into it. I really loved it. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. Again, I was afraid to step away from my day job because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage. You know, we've all got bills to pay. So, yeah. And then when I retired, I just decided to go full time. And in the last 18 months, I've been learning how to take what I do online. And I'm not talking about the reflexology, etc. I mean, you know, I can show you what points to work on yourself, but I'm talking more about the actual journey that I went on. Effectively, and yeah, I did a whole bunch of courses on just working with myself energetically and connecting with my higher self, and trust me, it's not been easy. I'm one of these people that I have fought my process the whole way. I have not done this graciously and gracefully at all. It's been a battle because I fight it, because I question it. And trust has been the biggest thing. And that's why in one of my groups at the beginning of the year, I said my word for this year is trust, because this is really something that I've been working on, certainly for the last 18 months. And when I say trust, I mean trusting myself, learning to trust myself, learning to trust my guides, learning not to question, learning to basically let go and let God. Because life would be so much easier if I could do that. I hope that answers your question. As I said, it was thanks, Joanne, and that was very long-winded. Sherry, oh, you're a writer. What do you write? That's interesting. Okay.
She's a copywriter. Get her on your website.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. Anybody else got any questions? Because we've been at this for about an hour and a half. This has been great, guys. Really, thank you so much for joining us. And Michelle, thanks so much for joining us as well.
It's always fun. I love it.
Yeah. One thing that I just wanted to mention, I have developed a 12-week program where I go on your journey with you to reconnect with yourself. And because it's a new program, what I'd like to do is offer, say, the first 5 people who contact me, I would like to offer it to you at probably a third of the price that I would be charging for it. If any of you are interested, it's going to be exciting. It consists of, as I say, it's a 12-week program, and it just consists of us connecting once a week and giving you homework to do. You would be doing all the work. I would just be facilitating what was going on. If you're interested, please either message me in my groups, if you are in any of my groups, or you could, what I can do when I post this recording, I will post a link to an email. You can just email me and let me know that if you're interested. And what we can do is we can get together and talk about it in more detail. So yeah, just putting that out there. If anybody's interested, I think it's very exciting, and you may find it mind-blowing and very exciting. Michelle, I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Sure. If anybody is curious about working with me further or diving into this topic further, I will offer a complimentary 1-hour breakthrough session that is mind-boggling and door-opening for a lot of people. And to get that just thanks, Sherry. Trying to figure out the easiest way. Either send me a private message on Facebook, or if you want to open your email browser right now without closing down your Zoom, the email is information@rocksolidlove.ca, and just type breakthrough session in the subject line and hit send. I will get back to you within, actually, honestly, probably not until Monday, because my grandma is in town. So after we're done here, I'm going to pick her up and we're getting together for dinner. I also, somewhere, this just occurred to me, have a presentation that I did, 5 steps or 5 keys to self-love, that I did for Women's Empowerment teleseminar last fall. It's a half-hour long, but if you want a copy of that, again, just send me an email, same email address. Just tell me self-love presentation, and I will find a way to get that to you.
Okay, guys, I've just typed in those 2 addresses, and I sent them to Carol because she sent us a private message. So I'm going to type them in again so that everybody can see them.
Yeah, the breakthrough sessions are pretty amazing.
Oh, I did it again. Oh, you gotta love technology, hey?
Sherry says copy and paste.
I'm on
smart.
I'm on a tablet, so copying and pasting, I need a mouse for that. Sorry, I'm technologically challenged. Sorry.
Oh, Carol already did it.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, I've put in my email address, Louise Dawson at holistichaven.ca, if anybody's interested. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been a wonderful talk. I know we went off topic, but really, just chatting is also really part of self-love, quite honestly. It's allowing ourselves to be and to talk and to commune. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope you found this helpful. I will be posting the recording of this in my groups, and I know Michelle will be posting it in her groups. So yeah, and if you're on my email list, I'll also send it out on my send out an email, a link to this recording. Thank you again so much. Thank you for your input. This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't asked the questions and you hadn't been here. And love you all, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Okay, bye everybody.